Hey, hi, how are you? I hope you're well. Just like the video that launched into this one, and if you haven't seen it, I'm talking about I want to start something new. I want to start a safety mashup. Partly because I used to enjoy live streams, but really and truthfully, more people watched the stream after it was recorded and done than actually logged in while I did the stream. So I'm going to do something similar. I'm just going to pre-record everything and then launch it. It gives me also the opportunity to do some minor editing just in case there's guffaws somewhere or hiccups. But basically, the whole format is going to answer some questions and going to address some comments. And so I appreciate all of the comments and interaction I get. So please keep the questions coming. Please keep the comments coming. And hopefully we'll get somewhere with the questions and comments. I'm also going to address some of the bigger issues that are brought to me through social media and other things. And so stay tuned. I'm going to talk about one. It involves TDG. And I like it when people contribute and ask questions and then bring me the material as well to address. And then I'm going to also look at some safety issues in the news. So if you stumble upon a news article or something that you want me to address or talk about, by all means, throw them in the comments, by all means, please. But the first comment I want to address is one I get every once in a while, not often, and it's a little louder, please, just like this one right here. And honestly, my mic is, well, you can't quite see it. It's right here. And it's up as far as it's going to go without it clipping. Okay, clipping is when you hear that harsh sound like that. And so I'm up as high as I can go. There's really not a lot I can do. Maybe I can suggest turning your device up. And if I am too quiet, let me know in the comments below. Let me know what your thoughts are, please. But anyway, no further ado. Let's dive into some questions, shall we? So the first question is from Dwayne Drummond's SR, or it's Dwayne Drummond or Dwayne Drummonds. Anyway, Dwayne Drummond SR 7529. And he asks, how should commercial fire extinguishers be labeled? Excellent question, Dwayne. To be quite honest, the NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, has strict labeling conventions around fire extinguishers and how they come from the manufacturer before they end up in the hands of the consumer or the people that buy them. But there are some additional guidelines for public places where they're supposed to be mounted, and they're supposed to have a sign clearly marking them. Many of you have likely seen them. It's usually a white arrow on a red background with red lettering inside the arrow that says fire extinguisher. Sort of like, well, this one that you see here. And usually the fire extinguisher is directly below it. Now, Dwayne, please do me a favor. If that doesn't answer your question, let me know in the comments, okay? Because, well, I am answering the best I can. And equally so, folks, feel free to comment wherever and whenever you feel like it. Now, this next one comes from Sorrel. And she writes in her subject line, she said, career advice on occupational health and safety studies. She says, hello, my name's Sorrel, and I have a bachelor's degree in quality hygiene and food safety from Africa. I'm planning to build my career in occupational health and safety here in Canada, but I'm not sure which study option would be most beneficial for me. And it's a question that lots of folks ask Sorrel, honestly, lots. In fact, I asked it myself and I shopped around, but she's gone forward and she says, I'm currently considering a 1 year full-time diploma at Western University of Ontario, or 2, a 2-year part-time diploma at Western University of Ontario, 3, a 2-year college diploma in occupational health and safety, and likely the same between the two of them, as a university diploma and college diploma. Diploma's diploma. Or 4, a 1-year online certificate from a college. And she says her option is to choose, or her goal is to choose the option that will help her best meet the job requirements in the field, secure employment, and grow her career in Canada. She says she's leaning towards the Western University of Ontario diploma, but she wants my professional opinion on which path would give her the best opportunities. Couple of things to think about here. First off, number one, how much time can you devote to studying? Because you've outlined some part-time and full-time options there. So if you have to work as well, then the part-time offering might be your best bet. But also the next question you have to ask is, how soon do you need to be in the workforce? Obviously, you want to get in the workforce as soon as possible so you can start earning some cash. So if that's the case, maybe a 1-year certificate might be the best for you. It'll still enable you to pursue a Canadian Registered Safety Professional certification or a Canadian Registered Safety Technician certification, either or, and you can be working or looking for work as soon as possible with some qualifications. But to be honest here, it also really depends on 3 things. When you're going for an interview and looking for a job, it really depends on 3 things. One is experience. Like, what do you bring to the table in that way as far as experience goes? And number 2 is how you do in the interview. If you can speak well and do a presentation, because most jobs I've applied for have had to do a safety presentation. And then, of course, what else can you bring to the table? What other experience? And I'm going to talk about that one in just a sec for you, Sorel, because this might make some sense. If you were to get a 1-year certificate and then applying somewhere in the food production industry, that might be a path because you have that background already in quality control and in the food industry. And then you can combine safety with it, and that might actually be the path for you to take. Now, to be honest here, it's difficult to make recommendations without more context, but at first kick at the cat, that's the best way I would go. And once again, if you need more or want to go back and forth, just leave me something in the comments and I'll try and respond accordingly. Now, this one's from James. He says, I'm considering going back to school for a certificate program in OHS. He's been doing seasonal work with the Municipal Government Insect Control Department for 10 years and 4 of those in a supervisory role. But it's a role that's kind of hit the ceiling in terms of places to move up, he says, and he feels he needs a career shift. He says he sees this health and safety department from time to time, and there's things he thinks he could bring to that role with the supervisory experience, people skills, and of course, training. He's still on the fence about heading into safety as a career, but he thinks it would be fruitful in the right organization. He asks, did I work in multiple organizations over my career? So a few questions there, so let's unpack it, and we'll start backwards with the, did I work in multiple organizations? Yes, I did. I've worked in logging industry, but within that organization, I also did civil construction work in the way of building subdivisions and doing all the civil construction for it, road building. I've worked in post-secondary, I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in, done consulting work in small construction projects, etc. And within my post-secondary realm, I did the safety management for large construction, commercial construction. So that's my career. But also, James, as far as your other questions about wanting to get into safety, I recommend everyone who's thinking of that, going down that road for a career change and getting into safety, is to volunteer for your health and safety committee, because it gives you that partial immersion. It's like sticking your toe into the water to see if you actually want to dive in. But it's also an eye-opener because, honestly, safety has an ugly side at times. Now, on that note, I've been thinking of doing a video about the uglier side of safety. If you're interested and want to see it, let me know in the comments, okay? If I get enough comments, I might even do it. But when you're on the committee, you'll likely see that there's things like politics, petty squabbles, people bringing their issues forward that have nothing to do with safety whatsoever. But the plus side of being on the committee, you also have the opportunity to get involved, see what safety's like, create some real change, and even maybe dialogue with the safety professionals at a deeper level. But that's the road I'd take at first. And then if you decide you want to pursue it and get some more training and education, then you have a good idea. Okay, and now here's one from Greg. He says, hey, Kevin, great video. I had some questions about getting into the occupational health and safety field, and I was wondering about the different kinds of investigations that can be performed. He says he's located in Alberta and grew up with an OHS father. I grew up with a dad that says, yes, he was Mr. Safety. Unfortunately, he broke his leg, mangled his fingers, cut off some toes. You get the picture. Anyway, so you're lucky. You're fortunate you grew up with an OHS father. I think it would have been a plus. But when it comes to investigations, to answer your question, I've done likely well over 100. I've done well over 100 investigations, easily. Well over 100, maybe, quite a bit more than that even. And they can range anywhere from simple investigations into like slips, trips, fall accidents, cut fingers, etc. As minor ones, there's things that you would be able to see like at first blush what occurred. Doesn't mean that you don't do an analysis of the investigation, but sometimes they're pretty much a gimme. But other ones where there was multiple involvement, multiple people, pieces of equipment, the environment, and other factors that came into effect that, you have to start using things like the 5 whys issues and fault tree diagrams to end up getting into root cause. And then, of course, there's occupational hygiene investigations into noise, indoor air quality, particulates, ergonomics investigations, and more. And not to mention bullying, violence, and harassment investigations. Now, my favorite part of safety is the investigation side. Honestly, it is. However, keep in mind one thing. That's not all you'll have to keep you occupied. There's all sorts of other things that fall into it, like you liaise with the Health and Safety Committee, usually end up guiding them. A lot of times pushing them from the back and propping them up from the front, but there's that. But there's safety program design, safety training program design. There's so much that goes into health and safety, honestly, that it's a fascinating field. And as you can tell, I get kind of passionate when I talk about it. So if you're thinking about it, by all means, I'd pursue it. Like I've said just in the previous segment where I answered another question, think about working with your health and safety committee and providing some help there. And that can give you a bit of an immersion into it. Now, the great question here from Arush. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry. I apologize if I'm not. And she asks, what's the difference between due diligence in small companies and large companies, if there is one? And short answer, no, there's not. But long answer is, I get asked this often, and funny thing, when you think about it, like if someone gets seriously injured or there's a workplace fatality, it doesn't matter the size of the organization. The authority having jurisdiction is going to investigate the cause the same. They're going to dive into it to discover the cause the same way. However, with the size of the organization, I have found the penalties are often greater because there's that ability to pay. Now, I know that there's lots of lawyers out there that will say that's not the case. My response, please go look at the penalties then. Now, what I just said is anecdotal. It's just me from scanning it. I haven't plugged everything into an Excel document and done a deep dive. That's just first blush anecdotal look at it. Anyway, due diligence is often explained as doing the right thing in the right place at the right time. The right time being, before an incident occurs. And the right place is where there's, let me try that again. The right place is where there's a hazard and it needs to be controlled. And then, of course, the right thing is adequately controlling it. Now, due diligence itself needs to be measured and implemented using the reasonable person test, especially where there's no guidance provided from legislation. Read OHS legislation, nothing prescriptive. And of course, if you're to think about it this way, here, I'll give you a good example. Let's say that there's no hard rule for this row of 10 shopkeepers. And there's no hard rule saying that they are legally required to clean their sidewalks off or anything else like that. But you get 9 out of 10 of the shopkeepers are shoveling their sidewalks every day. The 10th shopkeeper is just doing it whenever and maybe hoping that the snow will melt or go away. somebody slips and falls. Here's the question for you. Was that 10th shopkeeper doing their due diligence using that reasonable person test? Because the reasonable person would simply have shoveled their sidewalk, right? Because 9 other people did it. The idea being, if a person in a similar situation under a similar set of circumstances, if they've done that thing to alleviate the hazard, then you should do it too. Now, the other thing is that old adage, as far as it goes, if it's not written down, it never happened. Now, one final note on due diligence, please be obvious about it. For instance, if your workplace policies don't adequately address a hazard, but an argument could be made about the meaning, don't make the argument, just change the policy, please. Okay, let's change tactics a bit here, or tacks. Let's take a different turn, a different fork in the road, shall we say. Let's talk about a few comments. So here's this comment from Tortian, and it's about safety in multiple jurisdictions. I did a video on it, and he says ISO 4500 or 45001 would make it so much easier. Then he says, love what you're doing, mate. Thanks, Ian. Hey, I agree. I agree it would be so much simpler to have everyone on the same page, even in Canada. Because honestly, throughout the provinces, it differs everywhere. It differs in the territories, provinces. There's some similarities. There's some commonalities. But there's still differences. And then let's not mention going across the border to the U.S. or going into another country. It would be easier if we had everything the same. However, I can safely say this, that I'll be well retired, not just because of the gray hair, but I'll be well retired before we might ever see a hope of that happening. Now, I'd like to think I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Now, I just want to pause here for a second and thank all of you that stop by and leave encouraging comments. Everybody that does. And there's a few people that seem to be offering them quite a bit, and like Thornydale, Dave Greeno, Dan the Safety Man. Thank you guys so much, and thank you everybody for leaving those comments. It's encouraging, and it helps me to keep making videos, because let's put it this way, my wife always kids me if I was to ever make the amount that I've invested back in the video equipment and the computer equipment and everything, that I'd be doing really well. I don't think it's going to happen. But anyway, it's a hobby and a pleasure. But let's look at this comment from Carla Smith about a video I made about a difference between a safety walk and a safety inspection. Now, in this video, I said that a safety inspection is a formal thing. It's recorded on a form, recorded as a matter of business. Often it's a legislated requirement, and there's a lot of components that you take a deep dive into. But once again, formal meaning there's a form. And then I said that the safety walk is often done by supervisors, managers, leaders, and it's informal. Nothing's recorded or written down, unless, of course, something's starkly bad and there needs to be some severe performance management, but otherwise it's informal. Now, Carla, she responded to this so wisely, and she said, wrong. Now, what I did is I asked her in a return comment, how so? And I never really received anything back, but you know what? Just for fun, let's see how AI answers this. Now, I asked Microsoft Copilot and Grok the same question, and with some subtle differences in the dialogue, I got the same answer. I'm pretty sure, but let's see what Google Gemini has to say. So we'll get Google Gemini to weigh in. Hey, Google. What's the difference between a safety walk and a safety inspection?
A safety walk is an informal, proactive tour to find hazards and observe employee behavior, while a safety inspection is a formal, documented process to ensure compliance with regulations.
There you go. What can I say? Well, I can say this. Folks, I don't mind being challenged. As a safety professional, I get challenged often. It's the nature of the job. In fact, all you safety professionals, weigh in the comments. I don't think I'm the only one. In fact, I know I'm not the only one. It's the nature of the job. But for goodness sakes, when I reply and ask, how am I wrong? Or how is what I've said wrong? Please have the decency to reply. Okay? I'm not saying that I'm going to get into a fight online or anything, and I might be wrong. I just want to know how. But there's also that opportunity that it might be maybe a learning opportunity for someone down the line if they're wrong. Not pointing any fingers. Okay, let's switch things up a bit. Here's something said to me by David Greeno. It involves transportation of dangerous goods. Actually, that are either a stark ignorance of TDG or willful noncompliance. So here's what the headline says. It says, improper fuel transport leads to charges in Wasaga Beach. And this fella, you look at his handle here, his Facebook handle, give him a follow and give him some love because he does quite a bit here. It says members of the Huronia West Detachment of Ontario Provincial Police conducted a traffic stop involving a local business, which resulted in the operator being charged with multiple offenses under the Dangerous Goods Transportation Act and the Highway Traffic Act. And this happened just a few months ago, July 27th, 2025. Officers stopped a vehicle transporting fuel in the Wasaga Beach area. The vehicle was displaying dealer plates, and further investigation revealed that the fuel containers were neither capped nor properly secured. This was posing, of course, a significant safety risk. As a result of the investigation, the dealer plate was seized, the truck was placed out of service, and the operator, a 41-year-old from Keswick, was charged with the following offenses. And we look at them here. We got using a plate not in accordance with the Act, failure to display prescribed safety mark and the small means of containment, failed to comply with federal regulations and safety standard with the insecure load, failure to comply with federal regulations and the safety requirement, unable to produce a shipping document. Let's just pause here for a second. If he had taken, and we'll see, when I say if, he had taken a TDG course, he would have found out that the shipping document, the manifest, is a big deal, and it takes up a significant part of the course talking about it. Let's read on. He failed to comply with federal regulations with transporting dangerous goods while untrained. In other words, like I said, if he had taken a course, he would have found this was no big deal. Really, there's no excuse here when you get right down to it, because TDG courses are cheap. They're like, I don't know, anywhere from 25. I think the most expensive one I saw was $100. They're not much. My goodness, they're not much, especially if you're paying someone to, like, someone's driving the stuff around. I'm pretty sure the punitive action, the fines and everything else that this person is going to get as a result are going to amount to more than the $100 it would take to take the course. Anyway, let's move on, and we're going to take a different tactic here. Let's look at some cases of, well, how should we say it? Well, outright negligence. Now, I'll reiterate why I think there was a lot of negligence when we're done here, but when we go through have a look at these three cases, but let's have a look at them. So the first one, we have a carpentry company fined $140,000 in a workplace fatality. So there's the big one, fatality. Workers should not be dying. So Kingsview Carpentry Limited has been fined $140,000. Another important part, Kingsview Carpentry was acting as the principal framing contractor on a residential construction project. You can look at that as acting as the prime contractor because they hired, and I always pronounce this wrong, however I need to pronounce it, let me know in the comments, hired Gruel Construction to install pre-engineered roof trusses atop a garage of a single-family home under construction. Just prior to the incident, workers from Gruel Construction were preparing to separate the roof trusses they had previously hoisted onto garage walls. To assist in keeping the trusses upright, Gruel Construction had constructed a wooden support system in the center of the garage. Now, here's the big one. However, this structure is not designed or intended to function as a work platform. So, either those that built it didn't design it or intend for it to be used as a work platform, or that's what the findings for the investigation, or both. But no matter what, work platforms are supposed to be certified. So they can build it, but they just need a professional engineer to certify it. And so if the intention wasn't to be used as a work platform, then it was being used incorrectly. A worker from Gruel Construction climbed onto the support system to reposition the trusses. During this task, the support system collapsed. The worker was not wearing any kind of fall protection and fell to the ground, sustaining a fatal injury. Anyway, let's read on. An Alberta supervisor pleads guilty in order to pay a fine in a serious workplace injury. This one doesn't say fatality, so thank goodness. But here's the big one. Whenever there's a hole cut into a surface where workers are going to be walking back and forth on or walking around on it, it needs to be covered, or at minimum have guardrails up around it and warnings. And you'll read here that, and I'll leave links in the description, Mr. Cross, the supervisor, he failed to ensure the temporary cover over or used to protect the hole had a warning or marking near or to the fixed to the plywood cover to indicate the nature of the hazard. Another piece that I highlighted here, and it's pretty important to consider, is Canadian courts are seeing an increase in supervisors being held liable for their actions in workplace injuries and fatalities. I'll talk a bit more about that in a sec, but let's look at the last one here. A PEI carpenter faced fined $30,000 after an employee died in a workplace fall at a West Prince job site. So here we are, and once again, the supervisor, Trevor Burden, 54. So one would assume they've been in the occupation quite a while, right? But he was charged with failing to properly supervise his employee and failing to have proper fall protection system or fall arrest system in place. You could even go further and say fall protection system. But once again, here's why they're negligent. Okay. First off, they had some commonalities about them. One, no fall protection. None of them. No fall protection. The other thing is, if there was a safe work plan in place, which I highly doubt, I honestly highly doubt, it was sorely inadequate. Another one is there was a lack of supervision or competent supervisors, or both. There was no ongoing hazard assessment process, even stop audits or anything else like that. There was none of that. No informal hazard assessment process going on, because you knew very well if there was, these things wouldn't have happened. And I would go on to say that there was no inspection process. Likely no things like toolbox talks, nothing like safety walks by managers, Carla. But let's leave it at that, shall we? Now, I've heard a myriad of excuses over the years. From time is money, and I don't have the money to waste my time on you making work more difficult. I've actually been told that. Or what are the chances of that happening? Famous last words. Other famous last words like, yep, looks solid. I was only going to be up there for a second. Let's be safety leaders. You don't have to have a bunch of letters behind your name. All you need is a desire to see your coworkers go home safely to their loved ones every night. So be that leader. Step up and have the bold conversations. Say the things you know others won't want to hear, but they need to hear it. But do it in a professional manner. And for goodness sakes, lead by example. Do the right thing at the right place at the right time, because heaven knows somebody's going to be watching. Okay, that's all I've got at the moment. Once again, please leave comments. Okay, take care. Bye for now.